Welcome to Popternative, where we dive into topical discussions from the worlds of pop culture, social media, and sports. Here is your host, Peter Remoliotis, aka PD Beats.
Hello and welcome to the Popternative podcast. This is the podcast where we have digital discussions, the worlds of pop culture, TV, music, film, sports, everything. Really, as always, I'm your host, Peter Remoliotis. On Twitter, you know me as PD Beats. My guest this afternoon, he is a legend. He's a Canadian singer-songwriter and family entertainer. We are with Fred Penner. Fred, welcome to Popternative.
Thank you very much, Peter. Nice to see you through this technology here.
No, absolutely. Well, we're really happy you're taking some time to chat. Whether you're an actor, a writer, a musician, you were all storytellers. When did you kind of decide that you want to be a storyteller, Fred?
Ooh, that's a good question. The evolution of my coming down to the early 70s. I had done lots of music and performing in folk things in high school, but nobody had ever told me that this could be a career move for me, which was interesting, even though that was the one thing that I gravitated to wherever I went. But in the early 70s, my younger sister, who had Down syndrome, she passed away, and my dad a year later. So at a critical part of my development, my early 20s, I was suddenly faced with what do I want to do with my life that these two important people have gone. So I started hitting the road and playing bars and lounges and in universities and just building up my roster of hits and my repertoire. And that's when things really turned around, and I made an internal decision to try and become a performer, do this as a career. 1971, 72, and then I did every type of performing I could find, from radio, television, drama, musical comedy, character roles in things like Fiddler on the Roof and Hello Dolly, the old musicals. So I just built up as many skills as I possibly could in the world of entertainment, and those have always been an important part of my extension here of what I do. I consider myself an actor, and so I bring a lot of that skill to the stage, in musical performance as well.
No, absolutely. You have been performing for many years. It's no secret. Have there been a few kind of performances or events that kind of stand out in terms of kind of like the key moments in Fred Penner's, performing career?
Oh, I mean, there's
so many,
literally hundreds of events along the way. I mean, the first one that pops into mind, I mentioned my sister who was born with Down syndrome. Susie was her name, and so over the years I've done lots of work with the Down Syndrome Society, and I played the national conference in Halifax. At least 30 years ago, and it was such a. I don't know if you've ever been, if any of your viewers or listeners have ever been to an event like that with Down syndrome children. Feeling that energy is quite overwhelming because they are the unwritten lies. Check your ego at the door and prepare to be loved. Because there is so much beautiful energy and loves and hugs and the most fundamental communication you can imagine. And so I was playing at this event, and then there were I don't know, a couple of hundred people there, and and I was on a small stage. It was only about a foot off the ground, and there were stairs coming up to it. And as I started singing, the kids, the Down syndrome children, started moving closer to the stage, and eventually came up on stage and surrounded me. And as they were doing that, the energy of that and imagining my sister Susie being part of that group it was overwhelming, and I just started crying.
Do you
And
see do you see yourself, do you see that as, like giving back, doing a lot of those type of things as a musician? Is that safe to say that that's kind of a misconception, that should be one of the big roles of musicians, that they're giving back and they're kind of promoting certain kind of organizations? Like, what do you think about that?
Yeah, no, I absolutely. I think that's a part of notoriety. As you grow, as your population, as your fan base grows, inevitably things that have a deeper importance to you, like an organization like the Down Syndrome Society or UNICEF or UNESCO or World Vision. I've been part of that organization for a while. I think performers who reach a level of notoriety inevitably get involved in this level of organization, and that's one of the honors as a performer, to be allowed to do that, to bring your voice to something of that level and that value. It's really important for your spirit. I mean, if you get down to that direction, to be part of these groups and to share something that can make a difference in the lives of others. That's the bottom line of what we're all doing, I think.
We're both Canadian, so I do want to ask this question because we're both Canadian, and I'm a bit. You're not the only one who's a big, fan and advocate for edutainment, educational entertainment. Because I, since I was a kid, was always, interested in the idea, like, wow, they're making, learning like fun and dancey, and like it's not just kind of like boring, you know what I mean? So my question to you is, you look at, yourself, and Ernie Coombs, Mr. Dress Up, and all those amazing edutainment advocates. I think that Canada, because we grew up in Canada, we watched the American shows as well, but I think Canada did an amazing job with children television content. Do you agree with that statement?
Well, yeah, there's no question. And there's a couple of thoughts why that happened, which I'll share with you here. When the post-war generation, when the boomers were coming into their adulthood, the largest demographic that moved through, that's why so many performers came forward at that time, all over North America. In the United States, that call was answered by Sesame Street, because you're dealing with 300 million people. You need something really solid and big that can reach that many audience members, and in Canada, that call was made. I mean, Sesame Street was part of it, but individuals like myself and Rafi and Cheryl and Bram and a host of others, we were able to establish a national presence and a national fan base, where one performer in the States could not do that, because you'd kill yourself, trying to go to every corner. Mm-hmm. So, and unless you had a vehicle like television or something else, it was all very regional in the States, other than the Sesame Street world. But as I said, in Canada, individuals, small groups could actually make that mark, and I think that's why Canada sort of rose to the top of humans, of entertainers, going coast to coast, doing the festivals and the soft seat concerts and etc. So that, I think that's one of the reasonings why we do seem to have risen to the top of that scale.
And it's amazing. Like, I remember, like me, like all the shows on CBC Kids and PBS, you know what I mean? And you had a show on in the States as well with I believe it was Nick Jr. for a little bit, right?
Yeah. Fred Penner's Place aired on Nick Jr. for 3 years, 89 to 92, to 50 million homes. So it made a pretty solid connection to a good chunk of the American population, and that opened up a whack of American touring. I was the first children's entertainer to play at the Universal Amphitheater in Los Angeles, and I played many states, lots of festivals, lots of events, and it was really a fascinating time. And certainly having the access to the American market through Nick Jr. was a very powerful opportunity.
Absolutely. It happens more than people think. Where there was a TV show in the 2000s, Life with Derek, that was filmed out of London, Ontario, and that was on Disney Channel. That was actually like part of Disney Channel's heavy rotation.
Yeah.
And it was funny because we loved that show growing up, and we didn't realize it was Canadian until like 2 seasons in, and we're like, that's why we like it so much. It's cozy, right? It reminds us. So what do you think of the new generation of edutainment? Have you kind of seen what's kind of out there now compared to what you were doing?
That's an odd. I mean, I understand the question. It's different now. I don't find that many of the performers now are really as not considerate, but they're not quite as aware of the power of their music in making a difference in the life of a child. The kids are automatically gravitating to to sounds, but there's a sense that it needs to be, or I'd like it to be more connected, more value in what it can do for the child. If that makes any sense.
No, it does. And I think it's the digital media kind of era. It's like a double-edged sword because there's more access to music, right? But there's a lot more kind of distractions as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's interesting that because of the media, because there are so many directions that parents will move the kids for some edutainment, through the technologies. But what I'm finding now is the purity of going on stage, one or a couple of human beings singing to other human beings is becoming unique again. Where for a long time that was the way it was. Then it dipped into more and more television and animation, etc. But now the audiences are coming back because they want something as fundamental as somebody singing to them,
No, I totally agree with that. And, you talked about a little bit, the notoriety and, giving back and being humble. So a lot of people have used the word iconic and legendary, like I did in my intro, when they talk about Fred Penner. I'm just curious, what do you think about those words when those words are kind of attached to your art? I mean, like, I guess it's surreal, right?
Yeah, because that's not anything that I aspired to in my career in life. I came into this for, I think, some really positive and good reasons. The loss of a father and a sister, but I did where my heart was leading me. The bliss of my spirit. To make music, to share music, and to know that an audience of many generations now has connected with me is wonderful. But I'm still doing the work. I'm still trying to figure out how this all makes sense and what I'm gonna play this weekend at a concert in Edmonton. You can't rest on your laurels.
Mm-hmm.
You're only as good as your last gig. That's the other part, So I appreciate the accolades that come to me, but I try seriously not to let that swell my head or make me feel empowered by that at all, because that's not what it's about at all.
If you have a quick kind of, like, what are some kind of advice that you have for singer-songwriters that are looking to kind of make a name for themselves and get their stuff out there based on kind of your experiences? Is there anything that you can...
Well, I mean, listen to your soul. I realize that. I mean, the sort of mantra that I work with is, and I've touched on it already in this conversation, is never underestimate your ability to make a difference in the life of a child, or anybody you're performing to. It doesn't have to be just for the child, but performers can and do make a difference in the lives of the people that listen to them. Being aware that that is a fact should make a performer more honest to themselves, so that the material they bring forward is recognizing that fact. Pay attention to what's around you. Really think about what you are presenting. Do it to the best of your ability. Develop a craft of songwriting. Don't just throw it on some lyrics and say, oh, that's okay, or a melody and say that's okay. Get in there, get right inside that music and make it stronger, make it better, make it fuller, make it so that it is actually saying exactly what you are trying to say.
Mm-hmm. No, that's amazing. I want this show also, Popternative, to be a little bit of a learning opportunity for people. So I always ask my guests about some advice, So, no, absolutely. Well, we'll wrap up with Fred. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Hey, Peter, it's my pleasure. Thank you.
Absolutely. The stage is yours to kind of plug away. What are you up to the next couple of months? Where can people find you online on social media? Yours.
Social media, there's Instagram, and I touch a little bit on the Facebook world and a little bit of Twitter stuff. The real Fred Penner is the main Twitter account, because there was some rogue sites that came out. Coming up over this summer, go to fredpenner.com. There's the on tour section there. You can drop me a line to my to an email address there. Mm-hmm. This summer I've got lots of gigs across the country, playing in Edmonton, playing in Cold Lake in a couple of weeks in middle of May, and there's festivals, Mariposa, Children's Festival in Vancouver and in Winnipeg. The Peterborough Folk Festival is coming up. London, Ontario is happening. So there's lots of really interesting gigs that I'm really looking forward to playing. And if your audience is anywhere near any of those spots, please drop by and tell them we connected already.
No, absolutely. Well, seriously, thank you so much. Sounds like you got a pretty busy summer ahead of you. So all the best with that.
Thank you so much, Peter. Great to see you.
No problem. Well, this has been Popternative, youtube.com/Popternative for previous episodes. And until next time, this is Fred Penner and Peter Beats signing off.
Thank you for tuning in to Popternative. Make sure to check out our past episodes of Popternative on YouTube. Be sure to like Popternative on Facebook and follow us on Twitter.
This has been an Autograph Communications production.